Ringers, it is Danielle here to our amazing Patreon supporters. Guys, I'm really excited. I'll introduce our video people to Hannah real quick. Say hi, Hannah.
Hey!
Hi, Hannah. I'm so excited. We're talking about some really fun stuff from this episode today. And Hannah, I didn't tell you this beforehand, but I'm very excited because for a completely non-related reason, I use this to-do list app thing that I've used for years, and it's been amazing and wonderful. And today they came out with this like slight update tweak that's amazing. And I found it this morning and I was like, oh my gosh. And it's just such a minor tweak, but it like helps my brain in such a good way that I'm like so excited to dive into it a little bit later today. But that's my morning. How's your morning going so far?
I'm curious about what this to-do app is.
I use Todoist, Todoist. It's my favorite.
I have to look into it.
I'm a to-do list junkie. It's how like I function in the world. And I've tried a bunch and I'm always like trying new ones when I see new ones come out and someone say like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love it. And I always, well, at least the last few years, I've always gone back to Todoist because it just works. It's quick. It's easy. It's smart. So anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, like something you use every day and it just like makes a small improvement and it's just like, oh, so good.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So on topic. Yeah. Do you use anything in your life to like keep stuff organized, or are you just like, is your brain just amazing?
No, my brain's not amazing. I use the reminders on my phone, just like I have 12 different reminders every day, but I love it because I don't have to think. Like it's just going to remind me. I'll do the thing. I'll check it off my list. Good to go.
That's awesome. That's how I'm too. I have like everything from at one point I had make my bed on there because I was not making my bed, and I like when I make my bed. I feel better about myself when I make my bed, but I was getting not lazy, I think just busy, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
So I started putting make your bed on my to-do list app because I don't let things sit on there. So every day I would get up and like make my bed and check it off my list, and I was happy. So but even
it's all a mind game.
Water the plants. Yeah, everything I can get out of my head and into this app. As scary, I guess, as that is, but I'm all for it. So for our ringers out there, I'm actually curious to see what other people do all the time too. So you guys better let me know. But yeah, I'm excited. So we're talking about like, obviously it's like we're getting into this like cliche topic for the time of year that it is going to be when this episode comes out, because as you Patreons know, we are recording these things a little bit in advance to make sure that that I have time to get it all edited. But I'm actually really excited to talk about it. Are you ready to kind of jump in and roll with this, Miss Hannah?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Is it Hannah Sender? Am I pronouncing it right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Tough to kind of goof that one up, but just want to double check.
Yeah. I get Hanna. I get, the different pronunciations sometimes. So well done.
I can see that. Probably because you're Hanna without the H. I can see how they're like, maybe it's different.
Yeah.
For sure. Alrighty. Get the froggies. Oops. Hit the microphone. There we go, Danielle. Cool. Alrighty, ready to rock and roll, as Dan always does in true Dan fashion. Even though he is not here, we're recording in 5, 4, 3. Hey everybody, I am so excited for this episode today. I have another amazing guest with me, and we're going to be talking about something that I know very little about. It is a total turn of tables for me today. So I'm so excited. I'm going to be soaking in today's information just as much as you guys out there. So I want to introduce, without further ado, Hannah Sender of Bride and Bliss. Now, Hannah, I'd love for you to give us actually an introduction to you and to your company, because I feel like you can tell us best.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a nutritional therapy practitioner, so it's holistic nutrition. And Bride and Bliss is a holistic nutrition and wellness company service for people getting married so that they can feel and look amazing throughout their engagement, on their wedding day, and beyond. So the approach to this is for it to be sustainable, long-lasting, and kind of the opposite of the typical crash diet that so many people who are getting married fall into.
Right. So, guilty. As many of our ringers know, we got engaged a long time ago now, I guess is where it's becoming. But I, full disclosure, have been procrastinating on doing a few things because I'm not currently feeling my best from a health perspective. I mean, I'm not sick or anything, but like I know I've had some stressful years that are physically showing in my body. And I'm really trying to use this as my catalyst to be like, no, we're going to start making some better decisions, right? So I'm so excited because this is the type of information that my brain really likes to eat up and see what I did there. In addition to the Oreos and the other things I like to eat up. But so Hannah, what kind of like started you on this journey with Bride and Bliss?
Yeah, so I graduated from my nutrition program in 2016. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I played around with a couple ideas. I just kind of one-off worked with clients, but I didn't really have like a business idea. And then I got married last June.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So June of 2018. And I am super, super into nutrition and wellness. And I was starting to find during this process, I was like, wow, there is so much stress and pressure and it's just so hard. It feels like to take care of myself in the way I know how to take care of myself right now. So that was a little like ding, ding, ding. If this is a struggle for you, this is a struggle for other people as well. And then I also just loved the process of working with my vendors, planning my wedding. It was just such a stressful, yes, but fun time. And I kind of ended the process and I was grieving it. I was like, I'm bored. I have nothing to do. I miss my vendors. They became like my best friends. And I was like, how do I kind of find myself back in this world in a way where I can do my thing? So these worlds kind of merged and that was the idea for it.
I love that so much. I think it's what you say is so true. And something we honestly talk about a lot on this podcast is planning a wedding is hard work. It's stressful. It's so much fun. It is such an exciting time of your life, but planning a large event that comes with a major investment in most cases, it's a stressful thing. Not many of us have that type of just disposable income to throw money at this huge thing. So it's a lot. And I think for some of us, or even for many of us, I would say that the reaction, well, I guess I should just speak for myself here. My reaction when I get stressed is to eat. I am a snacker. I will put the bad foods in. I will feel guilty afterwards. And then it doesn't help anything. Like I've given myself such a temporary fix that doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form long term. And I guess I know this, obviously, but sometimes I just need that reminder that to put the good stuff in will help me so much more long term. So I love that. And obviously, I just want to start too with this conversation. Hannah's company is called Bride and Bliss because obviously she works in the bridal industry, and obviously, as you heard, she doesn't want to leave us because we're an amazing industry. But we are going to be talking about to everybody here today. It's not just the female brain that we're going to be talking about. This is information that is for male, female, and otherwise. And if you are in a place even where you're like, I don't need this information, maybe somebody else does or whatever it is. So feel free to share this with whoever you think might just need to hear this really good bit of information. So Hannah, I was creeping around on your website, and one of the things I read, which so stuck out to me, I actually just stole this entire line because I think it's so on point. You said, this quest for quote unquote perfection can so easily cloud your enjoyment of this exciting time, meaning planning your wedding. But you say, but what if you could instead view this as the perfect opportunity to really take stock of how you feel, to prioritize self-care, and to form new healthy habits? And I read that and I was like, amen, sister. Because there is an obvious stereotype about getting in shape for your wedding. And, there's this pressure to like, gotta lose weight and gotta do this and gotta look perfect. And I don't buy into any of that. But I do believe that we should be on a quest to just take care of ourselves, right? And if being a bride or a groom is a really good motivating factor for you to make some healthier decisions and some little lifestyle shifts, then I'm all for it. I think as long as it's coming from a good place and not because you think you need to look a certain way or someone else is telling you think you need to look a certain way, if it's just coming from a place of, I just want to make some better decisions for myself, for the many benefits that comes with that, then I'm all for that. So in your opinion, Hannah, how much of getting healthy is exercise and how much would you say is nutrition?
Totally. So,
And I want
yeah,
exact numbers here. No, just kidding.
I cannot give that to you. No.
Yeah, right, shocker.
Just to touch on what you just said too, is like, that is exactly it. Like, that is so, it's like you feel this pressure, you so don't have to buy into it and you so shouldn't, but you do have this level of motivation that you don't always have. So why not use it sort of for good? So I love that you kind of picked up on that as well, because I think it's just like, why not take this motivation that you're having and run with it?
Right.
And
It's a built-in deadline, kind of. You know what I mean? For like, it's not going to change. So,
right. But so to answer your question, how much is exercise? How much is nutrition? I think, in my opinion, you can't out exercise a bad diet, right? So you can't eat Cheetos and Twinkies and cookies and then go run on the treadmill for 30 minutes and outdo that, because that's doing so much more in your body than just maybe putting weight on. So if we're really talking about getting healthy, I think it's really a focus on the food and then supplemental, healthy, consistent movement. So whatever that looks like for you, whether that's yoga, walking, hiking, HIIT exercises a couple times a week, getting on the treadmill, whatever feels good for you. But I think what happens is that people view exercise as like punishment for their poor diet. And so really it's doing more harm than good in the long run.
100%. I made a little bit of a shift to my my nutrition for 1 month. I was like, let's just try this for 1 month back in June. And my fiance Mike did it with me because I was like, I'm not doing this by myself. You need to do it too, which helped me. I'm a person that needs that accountability to somebody else. I knew I would be much better if I knew we were both doing it together, that I wouldn't, quote unquote, cheat and eat the things that I wasn't eating. So I made a major shift. And up until that point, I had been kind of like starting exercise and then not seeing results because I'm absolutely impatient, but I kept doing these little things and I was like, ugh. And I made that shift in my nutrition for that month and I dropped 10 pounds. And that was one of my goals, was to get back to a weight where I felt more comfortable. And it was amazing to me that I wasn't really changing much on the exercise front. I made quite a change on the nutrition side of things, and for the good. Like, I was still eating well and doing all that stuff. I was just very much not eating the junk that I was starting to really default to. And I was so surprised at how much better I felt, all the things. Now, obviously, like I said, I did it for 30 days and then made the unfortunate decision to be like, well, let's just start introducing those junk foods again. But it was a really good wake-up call for me that was like, Danielle, it's not just the exercise. Like, you really need to incorporate both of these things in a way that's going to come together nicely. Because in my work, I sit all day. So I know I need to incorporate more movement. It's just what it is. But it really showed me how big of a factor the nutrition aspect was.
Totally.
So as you kind of work with all kinds of different people, are there any like one size fits all rules or tips when it comes to nutrition that you have found?
So I feel this is a partly yes, partly no answer to me. So my approach to nutrition, just what I learned and what I believe in, is bio-individual, meaning that what works for one person may or may not work for the next person. So I like to use this as an example, but something that everyone thinks is really healthy, right? So pepper, eggplant, tomato, like, of course, that's healthy for everyone. Eat it as much as you want, right? So for some people, that's great. And then for other people, these are foods that are called nightshades, and they have these compounds that can make it really, really, really difficult for people to digest. They get all kinds of weird symptoms that seem unrelated. And so, you know, it's just, you have to get in tune with your own body and start to really realize what makes me feel good, not what makes my best friend or my coworker or the person on Instagram feel good, what makes me feel good. And so in that way, there's not really one size fits all. It's more about what works for my body. Now, the reason I say like, yeah, there are some one size fits all rules is that like, yes, I don't think anybody needs to be eating Twinkies and Cheetos. I keep saying Twinkies and Cheetos, but that's what's coming into my brain today. So it's like, yeah, that's not really going to work for anybody. That's not going to be good for anybody. And then I also think there are some things that everybody can do that will benefit them. So like reducing sugar, reducing inflammatory foods, like figuring out what your body is intolerant to and removing those foods, eating more gut supportive foods, right? And then incorporating mindfulness techniques. So I think like the nitty gritty is different for everybody, but there are some more broad things that everyone can benefit from and that no one will benefit from, if that makes sense. 100%. Uh-huh. hmm Yeah, so I think nutrition and wellness, right? So it's not all food. I think there's so much mindset work that goes into making a for real lifestyle shift. And it's to me almost as important as the food that you're eating because food is so emotional. There's so much tied to food. There's memory, there's people, there's experiences. It's so social. There's just so much tied to what you eat. And so it takes a lot of sort of mindset shifts, mindset work, mindfulness practices to start to really feel like you're doing a well-rounded version of what your self-care looks like. And so, it's journaling, it's meditation, it's movement, it's all of these different things that are so important so that first of all, so that food doesn't feel like an obsession because, even if you're healthy, if you're obsessed, it's not necessarily a good thing, but also just so that you're taking care of yourself kind of not to sound woo woo, but in body, mind, spirit, it's all part of it. And so I think people kind of get this laser focus on just what they're eating and they're missing half of what taking care of themselves might actually look like.
Yeah. And I think, like we had said earlier, planning a wedding, it adds stress to our plate, right? And it puts
Mhm.
us in these mindsets where we're like, oh, just give me I don't have time. Let me just run through the
Mhm.
fast food place.
Mhm.
But then you're just kind of maybe adding to your stress level because now not only are you putting something that doesn't, isn't great for your body in you, but now your body's having to work so much
Mhm.
harder to go through that you're not solving your problem. So I think that's what you said is that little bit of a mindset shift is really great for kind of combating that stress and but like also approaching food from a different angle, right?
100%.
Yeah, I
And
think
also,
that's so true. Go ahead. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, yeah, just the thing too about stress when you're planning a wedding is it's really, really interesting. All of these sort of like processed, inflammatory, refined sugar foods, they're actually stressing your body out. So it's not that you eat like a piece of cake and you feel stress in the way that you think of stress, but in your body, it's stress. And so it's really interesting when I talk to my clients about this who are so stressed. They're planning all the things, they're juggling all the vendors. And I tell them, like, look, if you're eating these things, you're actually adding so much stress. And it's really cool. I don't like to use the word control, but what I mean by that is you have a choice of what you put into your body every single time you eat. And so here's one thing where you can choose the better choice, and you can start to remove all of these pieces of stress that are happening in your body during this time. So it's really cool, and it kind of makes people stop and think like, wait a second, is this really the thing I want to be eating? Is this serving me, or is this adding to this already kind of crazy stress load that I'm feeling? And then they can make a more informed choice.
Right. I think that's a really great point for so many of us. That sort of knowledge can be so helpful because, like you said earlier, you look at things like tomatoes or peppers and you go, well, gosh, this is a vegetable. This is like something that what in the world could my body not like about this? But for some of us, that's just not a great thing. I know for me, I think soy is like a bit of a trigger for me, that if I have something with soy in it, I will be so tired. I can just lay right down and fall asleep regardless of the time of day within a half an hour. And I started putting those two things together. And now that I'm aware of it, I can kind of be like, oh, I definitely had something with soy in it. This is why I'm feeling that way. My body's just, I'm assuming, working really hard to try and process this. So just like those little things, listening to your body and doing all that, it becomes really interesting as you kind of go on that journey with it. But have you, is where I get stuck is the second I tell myself I am never allowed to have this thing again, because I love sushi, right? Which means there's soy sauce involved and edamame and those things that involve soy. But the second I tell myself, well, I can never have that thing again, A, I want it now more than ever, and B, it's like, well, it makes me sad. So is it something where do you have to just never have that thing, or how help me?
So I think I found in working with people that, first of all, this is a personality thing, right? So some people, you can tell them, this doesn't make you feel good. This doesn't make you feel good. And they're going to say, okay, I don't want it anymore. I genuinely don't want it anymore. I happen to be that type of person.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I'm lucky for that. Yeah. But then for a lot of other people, there is this, like, you tell me I can't have something, now I want it more than ever. So what I would say is that's a personality thing. And so you kind of have to honor that, right? So you can have sushi once in a while. And if you happen to know that you're going to feel like a little tired after, plan for it. Or don't eat it all the time. Make it a treat. But don't make it just about the food either. Like, are you going out to a meal with friends and it's sushi and there's so much more happening? It's really interesting. I'm not sure if you've heard of rest and digest. Mm-mm. Okay, so you have to be in this rest and digest state to actually digest your food. And so it kind of gets a little tricky, but if you're going into a meal saying, this isn't good for me, I'm going to have trouble digesting this, I'm going to feel like crap after I eat this, you're probably going to be right. But if you go into a meal and you're having a meal with friends or family and you're laughing and you're talking and you're having really good conversation, and this food is almost like on the side of what's happening, your body will digest it better, which is really, really cool. Because your body is relaxed and you're having fun and you're socializing, which is a huge part of being well, right? And so it's like you kind of figure out the ways that it works for you and you prioritize other things, if that makes sense to you.
That so makes sense. I've absolutely been in that situation before. I know the foods that trigger me. And when I go into it with the, like, this is going to suck, but I'm doing it anyway, but this is going to suck, it's always a much different thing than when I just do it and I'm focused on, the people I'm with and the experience that's kind of surrounding it. But I didn't realize, I thought that was me just maybe ignoring stuff. But that's such an interesting concept. And actually a really great, again, mindset shift too, of how to look at it, that you're not a bad person because you're eating this food, right?
Right.
Ugh,
that's a huge thing that comes up all the time, is like, I failed, I'm a bad person. And it's like 100% no. What you eat has nothing to do with who you are as a person. If you eat something that's not good for you, it's okay. Like, it's all okay. I think it's about having a lot of grace with yourself too. And just, especially if you're viewing this not as a diet, but as a lifelong choice. It's like you're never going to be 100% perfect 100% of the time. It's just not possible.
Saying that to a Virgo is like, just gives me like itchies. Because but yeah, for my Virgos out there, you guys know what I'm talking about. And also on the note, like I mentioned earlier, I know myself and other people, you can kind of make these little shifts. But sometimes when you don't see either, I don't want to say immediate because I don't think anyone necessarily expects to eat a healthy dinner and lose 10 pounds, right? But when you're doing the thing and you're making the shifts and you're not really seeing much change, it can feel a little bit like, why am I doing this? Like, is this right
Yeah.
for me? So do you have like, do you recommend that people give themselves like a certain amount of time to either see change or to just make some real positive changes in their life? Like, is it like hang in there for this and then you'll see a little bit of a shift with yourself?
Yeah, so again, I would say this differs for everybody just based on where they're at, what's realistic for them. Just personally and how I work, I like to meet people where they're at. And so if I'm telling you to completely overhaul your diet and I'm adding so much more stress to your life, we're not going to get anywhere. So it depends. But if it's someone who's really, really ready to full on commit, do it for a full, 100%, it's kind of cool what you can see happen in like a month, I would say. But then more generally, I feel like 3 months is a great starting point for most people to start to see or feel or both some shifts. And the cool thing too is 3 months can feel like a long time when you're in it, especially if you're impatient. But when you really start to feel a difference or see a difference, it's so motivating to keep going. And so, yeah, maybe you're not seeing it in a month. Give yourself 3 and then reevaluate from there.
Right. And that's a good way to think of it too. If you look at, okay, if you're at point A right now today, and like this is the first day where we're going to start making some changes, just think of like 90 days out. You can do this. 90 days out, you're going to feel, let's just say, better, right? Like at the very least, you're going to feel better. And however better and whatever better is to you, like I know that's what I want, right? So if you want that as well, like think of it like 90 days from now. That's just 3 months. You can do this, right? It's so possible. I want to go back a little bit to kind of what we were talking about with the idea of, okay, well, if I don't eat perfect all the time, am I cheating? Am I a bad person? What is all that? Because, eating healthy at home is very much one thing. But between, for our ringers, they're in a stage of life where they've got engagement parties and showers and bachelors and bachelorette parties and just going out and trying to be social with friends and maintain that, that aspect of their life. Is it possible to maintain that type of healthy lifestyle throughout all of that? Where, if someone's throwing you a party and a shower, you're probably not in control of the menu and the choices that are being made for you. You know what I mean?
Yep. So this is, of course, a huge concern for most of the people who I work with. Because it's true. They don't want to feel like they can't celebrate or go out with their friends and have the parties and do all the things, and they should do all the things. It's a time to be celebrated. But so what I like to talk to people about and what I've found is that this is kind of like a two-part answer. So there's kind of an emotional aspect to this, and then there's just a logistical aspect to this. So logistical meaning like if you can choose the place that you're going to go out with your friends, you choose the place. If you can look at the menu ahead of time, do that so you can go in with a little bit of a game plan. I always tell people like have a little snack before you go if you're going out to dinner so that you're not starving, because no one is really able to make, I like to say like an aligned choice when they're starving. So set yourself up for success in that way. Make sure you're drinking a lot of water, like you mentioned earlier. If you're going out to a bar, alternate your drink with seltzer. No one has to know what's in your glass. Like I always like to remind people of that. You don't have to make a big deal of it, and no one has to know. You're just taking care of yourself. So and making tweaks, right? Like subbing the dressing or putting the sauce on the side or subbing vegetables, all these little things that really don't feel like a big deal. And these are just like the logistical aspects of going out and still taking care of yourself. But then there's the emotional part, which I personally find is actually the bigger deal. Like everyone can kind of figure out these logistical things. And I think it's not really about that most of the time. I think it's this, it's hard to put yourself first, right? Like people don't want to do it. They feel really uncomfortable. They feel really selfish putting themselves first. And I talk to people about this all the time where they'll say like, I was out with my friends and I felt like I was a burden and I felt like I had to kind of be apologizing for making this choice. And, you know, I felt like maybe they thought I was judging them for what they were eating or how they were drinking or for their lifestyle choices because I'm being like more picky now. And it's really this kind of idea to me that it's like, you do not have to apologize for taking care of yourself. You are allowed to take care of yourself in whatever way you want to. And if you've made a decision, not like, I'll try until this gets hard. No, if you've made a decision that this is what you're committing to, then you've made the decision and that's what you're going to do. And so you kind of, again, it's a mindset shift of like, you know what? I'm not a burden. I'm not going to apologize for this. I know I'm not judging anybody else. I've made this decision for me because I want to feel good. I want to look good, which to me is almost secondary. You know, I want to feel really good. And so it's this whole kind of, mindset, emotional practice of standing in your power a little bit and just deciding that this is what I'm doing for me and it's about me and that's okay.
Right.
So,
and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to use, well, I'm getting married as an excuse, right? That can be a completely unrelated and should be a completely unrelated part of it as far as what you may or may not feel like you need to explain to your friends that you're with in these situations, right? Because I think that would be me as I would try to be like, well, you know, like I'm trying to get married and like I just want to really look my best. And like, you don't need to carry that excuse with it. Like, I just want to make in this moment for me, like, I just want to make this choice. And that's all it comes down to.
yeah, I think it can turn into a little bit, you know, when you go to, I'm getting married and it's kind of this excuse and it's almost an apology for what you're doing.
Yes.
And then what happens when when the wedding is done? Then what do people expect of you? So I think it's really kind of, like I said, standing in your power. There's no shame in taking care of yourself. And there's this fear, I think, that you're going to trigger other people when you do this. And the reality is, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, but the reality is like, it's not your problem. Your problem is yourself and how you want to feel and look and live your life. And so I think, you know, you can go to the parties, you can do all the things and still take care of yourself and decide like, I'm not going to eat this for someone else's comfort, kind of. I'm going to do what I need to do.
Right. I think a lot of if you're getting the vibe that like, okay, your friends maybe are judging you, I think a lot of it, or even teasing you, right? Because sometimes our friends can say things that hurt our feelings and don't feel the best. And sometimes it comes from a good place. And sometimes it comes from a place of maybe they're a little bit jealous that you're making this choice and that you're taking the hard route and seeing benefits from it and doing all these things. A lot of times that's where that teasing or judgment is coming from. And
Totally.
like Hannah said, that's not your problem. That's, you know, maybe that's something that eventually they'll come to you and say like, hey, what kind of started you doing this? Or, you know, have you found anything that works for you? And that's where you can like step up as a good friend and be like, yeah, awesome. Like, let's talk about it. Or, you know, let's go from there. Or here is this person that I've been working with. And I kind of want to talk about that a little bit because Hannah, this is what you do. And I feel as though as we go into the year 2020, there are so many roles and jobs and careers in this world that didn't exist 10, 20, 30 years ago. And there are amazing people like yourself. Obviously, I think nutritionists have been around for a very long time, which is wonderful, but I don't think they've been as accessible as maybe they are now. So is it common for people to work with someone? Like what kind of is the path? Because I think for someone to think I just have to learn all about nutrition on my own and figure this out on my own feels like a really tough task to add to the list when I'm also, planning a wedding and doing all the things. Like as a person,
Yeah.
how can we navigate this?
So you're saying like how do they come to me?
Yeah, like how do they come, or how do they come to anybody that is a
Yeah.
nutritionist? Like, is it realistic that an average person can get this type of help, or is it just for
Yeah.
the Kim Kardashians of the world, for lack of a better
Right.
person?
Understood. Yeah. I think you're right. I think this used to be far less accessible for people. Um, I also am not a registered dietitian and I haven't gone through that level of training. And so that's a whole other world. I think for people like me who are in this kind of more holistic wellness realm, it applies to everybody, first of all. And it's so, I think people are kind of coming to terms with this idea of health and wellness more and more and understanding that it is a holistic thing, right? It is like body, mind, spirit. And yes, you can look on Google, of course. You can try and figure out what to eat. You can look up the meal plan that's posted on Google, but I think people really want to know, how does this apply to me? And how can I start to see the benefits of this? And also, I need accountability, right? Like, I need someone to kind of hold me accountable to this until I'm able to do this on my own. So if that answers your question, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it applies to everybody. Yes, again, specifically people who are getting married are thinking about it a little bit more intensely. But at the end of the day, like, everybody could use this type of support.
Right. Because obviously there's a weight loss factor that is
Mm-hmm.
desirable to some people, but certainly not everybody. But are there other benefits for someone who is getting married to making this little bit of a shift?
100%. And yeah, just to touch on what you said about the weight loss, I always like to talk about that. Not everybody wants to lose weight. Not everybody needs to lose weight. Not everybody needs to fit into this box, right, of what you think you need to look like when you're getting married. And that is great. Of course, to me, weight loss is almost like the added benefit of taking care of yourself if weight loss is a goal of yours. But really, it's about feeling better. It's about having more energy when you wake up in the morning. It's about not needing to rely on the caffeine. Your skin looking good, your hair and your nails feeling really strong. You just kind of feeling this, reduced bloat. And I mean, everybody wants to feel that way, right? Like, no one wants to eat dinner and stand up and feel like ashamed a little bit and feel like they don't feel confident in being in their own body. And so there's all of these other benefits that are, to me, so much even more important, really, than weight loss. And it's just this general sense of vitality that you start to feel when you're taking care of your body and you're getting the nutrients that your body needs and you're kind of getting rid of the things that have been clouding you. Which reminds me, like, brain fog is huge. And so many people tell me they're like 2, 3 months in and they'll say, I feel like my thoughts are more clear. And I'm like, yeah, because you're more clear. And no one expects that when they go into this, but it's such a great benefit. And when you're getting married, it's like, yeah, you want to feel more clear. You want to know what you're doing, communicate well, talk to your vendors well, figure out, the vision you have for your wedding. All of this is really important for that.
For sure. I am because I work from home and what I do,
Mm-hmm.
I eat lunch at home just about every single day. And my go-to is like something that has to do with a ton of carbs, right? Like it's a sandwich. It's like pasta from the night before. I
Mm-hmm.
crave carbs so much for lunch. But I will always hit a slump in the afternoon where no matter how hard I try, everything is just getting forced for my brain to
Mm-hmm.
work and function like it was in the morning. I have fantastic mornings. My afternoons, more often than not, can be a struggle. And it
Yeah.
almost always goes back to what I've eaten for lunch. That if I've
Yeah.
made a better choice for lunch, my afternoons. I mean, I think everybody takes a natural dip in the afternoon in terms of their energy and all these things going on. And that's just like a ton of data that's out there supporting it. But it's like, okay, well, if I can make the little bit better decision to have a little bit more productive afternoon when I need to, then why not do that more? But it is interesting just kind of seeing the other benefits that come with making these little bit of choices. And I think, like you said, weight loss is like, yes, that's one of it, but there are so many other facets to all of this that, like I said, I think we all, who doesn't want to feel just a little bit better, especially that bloated feeling. I hate that bloated feeling after you eat. It just, it sucks from head to toe, right?
You feel like you want to go home, put your sweatpants on, lay on the couch, and it's just like, yes, we've all been there, but if you could not feel that way, even better, right?
Right, 100%. Now, is there advice that you have for somebody who's like making some healthy lifestyle choices and then they just kind of fall off the wagon and they make kind of not a great choice after not a great choice, and then they feel like, oh my gosh, like I did that good thing and now I'm just so far gone that like, ugh, what's the point? You know what I mean? Because it can feel really defeating.
100%. This is something else that comes up again and again and again. And I think this stems from this sort of diet mentality that most of us have come from, which is that you're either good or you're bad, you're doing it or you're not, you're successful or you're failing, right? And I think, to me, this comes back again, I said this before, it's having so much grace with yourself and being really nice to yourself and knowing that you're in this for the long haul, and that if you mess up for one mess up, I'm going to put in air quotes because I don't even like to use that kind of language, but okay, you mess up for a meal, for 2 meals, for a week, it's like, okay, so what? Your life is so much longer than a meal, 2 meals a week. Like, move on. Stop beating yourself up for this. And also, when you start to really get in touch with your body and how you feel, it's like, oh, I ate that meal last night, and it's not about I'm going to gain weight and I failed. It's more like, how do I feel, right? Like, do I have a headache this morning? Am I feeling bloated? Do I feel a little foggy? Like, ooh, I don't really want to feel this way. I wasn't feeling this way before. I'm going to go back to that because that felt really good. And so getting in touch with your body is huge. And just sort of, when you feel like you're nourishing yourself, it feels really, really good. And when you're not, it's okay, right? You're human. Like I said before, you're never going to be 100% perfect. But if you're in it for the long haul, to spiral and get out of control and beat yourself up, like, why are you going to do that to yourself? It's okay. Have forgiveness, grace, kindness, all of that. And then the same way you would talk to a friend, you would never, ever say to a friend what you would say to yourself after you've eaten something you didn't want to eat. So it's just about, and realizing too that every single time you eat, you have a choice, right? Just because I ate a piece of cake last night doesn't mean that now I need to wake up and eat pancakes and waffles for breakfast. It's like, okay, new opportunity, new day, new meal, like, no big deal. So again, as we've been talking about, this all feels kind of like mindset work, really.
Right. That's really true. I think what you said about you wouldn't talk to your friend the way so many of us have that inner dialogue with ourselves, right? There was also something, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the podcast. So if I have, I'm sorry for repeating it, but I think it's worth repeating either way. I don't know if I heard on another podcast at some point that if you always had a friend who you were making plans with and they just were never showing up, they were never quite reliable, they would just say like, yeah, they're going to do the thing, and then they just didn't do the thing, you would start to learn that that friend is just not somebody that you can count on. The same goes for how we talk to ourselves. If we make promises to ourselves that I'm going to eat better next time, I'm going to eat better next time, I am going to get out and go for a walk today, and then we don't, your brain absolutely starts to learn that voice in the head, that person is not that reliable. And yeah, he or she said she's going to work out today, or she said they're going to have a good lunch, but we know they're not. You start to identify as, well, I'm just not a person that sticks to my word, and I'm not a person that that follows through on what I say. And that is a major, I don't want to say problem, but it's not a great place to be in when you can't trust yourself. Right. And I'm there. That's like I got to this place and I'm slowly trying to navigate it and learn how to come out of it because I mean, I'm not a bad person in any stretch, but I am absolutely a person that really, I'm hard on myself. And this all comes from like therapy and learning all this stuff. I know I am hard on myself. The way I talk to myself is not how I would hope I talk to anybody else on this planet. And the same thing, I can be so accountable to other people. That is where I shine. But when it comes to being accountable to myself, I am always the first person to like let myself down. And it's just like, well, wait a second. I think I deserve a little bit more than that. You know what I mean? And that's every person does. So it's tough to kind of step back though and look at it from that perspective because I, especially going through therapy, I always told my therapist, if I'm not hard on myself, what if I don't get it done? Like I need to be hard on myself. I need to make sure that I am getting whatever it is done. And like, if I'm not like beating myself down a little bit, what if I don't do it? And she just flat out said, have you ever tried the opposite where you're like encouraging yourself? She's like, and I was like, well, no. And she's like, then maybe you don't know, you know, maybe that could result in something better for you. And I was just like, all right, well, that's a really great point.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I was actually thinking as you were saying that, like, because I work with a lot of people who kind of feel the same way and they beat themselves up and the dialogue in their head, they can be so just like mean to themselves, really. And I say the same thing. I say like, well, can you try another way? Can you try another way for like a week, right? Can you just be so nice to yourself for a week and see what happens? And then more often than not, if they can do it, it's like, you know what? I just felt so much better. Like that was such a more pleasant way to exist and to go down this road. And so, yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Yeah.
I think even just being more mindful of it sometimes. The week when this was probably about a year ago now, the week that she said, like, have you just try, like, what does it look like? What's the worst that's going to happen? If you do this for a week, what's the worst that happens? And I was like, yeah, good point. And going home and, you know, I talked with my partner, Mike, about it, was like, okay, this is what I'm going to try. And every time I would sort of say something, you know, putting myself down or being like, oh, I was so stupid I did that. It was nice because I would have him to be like, hey, you know, you said you weren't going to do that. And but the more I was aware of it and the more I saw just how much I was saying those things, it was like, oh, this might really be a problem in the sense that I did not realize how often I was doing that. And like, you know, like I said, if that was somebody else talking to me that way, I wouldn't want to keep them in my life. So gosh, we need to make a change here. And it's like a constant journey to kind of go through that and navigate that. And the same goes with any type of healthy mindset and lifestyle choice that you want to make. Like it's a journey, and there's going to be times where you're like kicking butt at it, and then times where you're like, today is not going as well as the other day, and that's okay. That's just the ebbs and flow of life.
Totally.
And, like
and it is what it is.
Yeah, you got to give yourself grace. But what you said about how, okay, that was like 1 week where like maybe you just fell off the wagon and you just, it was what it was. But like you have hopefully so much more life ahead of you that are you really going to let that 1 week dictate the rest of that?
Right.
I hope not for you guys.
Right.
Oh, that's so true. I love this so much. This is like such good information. I hope our ringers are enjoying this as well. We're not really talking too much about wedding stuff, but I'm excited because this is the type of information that I think we can all just listen to and hear and get those little reminders. One of the things is to totally switch gears here. I read in your blog, Hanna, that you enjoy doing at-home yoga when you need to distress. Do you have a favorite app that you like to use for that, or do you just kind of like do your own flow of things?
So I am terrible at yoga. Horrible. Like
No. No, you're not terrible at yoga. Don't talk to yourself that way.
No, I find it very amusing. It's like,
there you go.
No, you know, I'm not hard on myself about it. I'm more just like, this is funny to me that like I can't touch my toes. It is what it is. So I'm not sure if you've heard of Yoga with Adriene.
Yes.
Yes. So she has a YouTube channel. She has like thousands probably of free videos. She is amazing. So I just do her videos at home. I tend to do the ones that are like, 15 minutes, like not much, just really it's more about like centering, breathing, taking a minute, after a long day of work before jumping right into cooking dinner and doing all the things. It's like, I'm going to just take 15 minutes for me right now before I move on with my day.
Right. And it's 15 minutes or whatever it is that you have to spare, right? Like it's, we all have it. I mean, obviously I don't know everybody's situation, and there are people that have barely a second to breathe. But if you've got time to kind of pop on Instagram or on Facebook or on Pinterest to kind of do the mindless scroll thing, you've got time to make this little bit of time for yourself. I'm a big advocate of that too. I have a yoga studio that's pretty close to my house that I occasionally will walk to. They do these like $5 community classes on Friday nights that are awesome, that when I can, I try and do that because I just feel better when I do it. And the more good choices I make, the more good choices I continue to make. So that's what I keep telling myself. But I was curious to see what you used. I have an app called Down Dog Yoga, and this isn't an ad for Yoga by Adriene or any of it, but I love Down Dog Yoga. It's an app that you basically just put in how long you want to work out for, how you want to do yoga for, rather, how, like, if you want to focus on like your hips or just stretching, or just you want to move slow or you want to move fast, or whatever, you can like customize all of it and just go. And that worked well for me because what I found was I would have these other different apps where there was like different designated classes, and I would spend like 10-15 minutes scrolling through the classes trying to figure out what I wanted to do, that by the time I was done and I found it, I was like, well, now I just don't have as much time and I don't know if I want to anymore. So this app for me worked really well because I didn't have to make any decisions other than like, how long do I have? Do I need to focus on anything? Go. Like that's all I got to do. So I like that a lot.
You said Down Dog Yoga?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Down Dog. I think it's just Down Dog Yoga. It's a little blue icon.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of that one. And I think it's just Down Dog. But it's very cool.
There's an app for everything.
Oh my gosh, there's such an app for everything. But it's interesting because I go through different phases of my life where sometimes I do a lot of yoga and things like that at home. A lot. That's a relative term. More than usual. And then there's other times where I see that I need to get out of the house and I need to go to the gym or go to the yoga studio or go for a walk. And I'm just trying to kind of go and roll with it because for so long as a Virgo, I think I so wanted to have that. This is what I do, and this is my routine, and this is what it's going to be. And I had to get to a point in my life where I just had to be like, I just need to do something, and I'm going to go off of every day what feels like it's going to feel best to me that day. And that's what I'm going to do. It doesn't need to be that, if I don't do it every day, then I'm not going to do, like, for now, at this stage of my life, I just want to do something. And that's good.
It sounds like, you have a lot of awareness around it too, which is awesome. I mean, I think with exercise, with food, with wellness in particular, there's this like should list of like all the things we should be doing. And it's like, I should eat this, right? I should do like the celery juice thing, even though I find it disgusting and I'm like choking it down. Or I should like go to the gym and run for an hour when I'm kind of tired, and what would really feel good right now is just like going for a walk. So yeah, just like getting in tune with your actual body and what would feel good for you. And it might change every day, every month. It doesn't really matter. It's more about actually listening and tuning in. So it sounds like you're really aware, which is great.
Sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing, because I do feel like I am aware of a lot, that on the days where I feel like I'm not as in a healthy of a headspace, that awareness shifts to, well, all these things. Why can't you, which is like my trigger phrase, why can't you just do whatever it is. So it's hard. It's really hard navigating all of this. And, for our ringers out there, I know I'm not alone in this. And I think we're all at different stages and different levels. But you can just, you can make little shifts that feel good to you and feel right to you, and pat yourself on the back for just making that little bit of a good choice, and give yourself grace when you go, hey, maybe that wasn't the best choice, and just kind of go on from there. Don't carry it with you guys, because I think that is that's a tough thing to carry around for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Hanna, anything else you wanted to add before we kind of wrap up this episode and learn how to get more in touch with you? Can we just have your phone number, Instagram, email, like all the things?
Anything I want to add? No, I mean, the one thing I'll say, it just occurred to me, like thinking about, weight loss and all of this stuff, is like so many people come to me with this goal of weight loss, right? They're getting married and they need to lose weight. They need to fit in the dress or look really good in the suit or whatever it may be. And what I find really fulfilling and what ends up happening almost every time is that the weight loss becomes an afterthought, and people come to me and they say, like, I feel so good. And then they'll have the wedding day and they'll say, I felt so good. I felt so clear. I wasn't worried about what I was eating on my wedding day, which, like, no one needs to be worried about. That should be the last of your concerns, least of your concerns.
To interject, you should worry about eating, guys.
No, you should eat.
Yes. So many couples get so busy that they forget to eat. So make sure you're eating. But yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I told my planner actually on my wedding day, I was like, look, this is no compromises. Like, I am sitting down for dinner. Everyone else is going to have to wait. And I ate a full plate on my wedding day. Highly recommend doing that. But please eat. But no, it's just nice. It's not just about weight loss. And if you don't have weight to lose, it's like you can still feel better in your body. And it feels really good. So,
and if you don't have weight to lose, but you're not making the best decisions when it comes to what you're putting in the body, just because you aren't a person who's showing it physically, you might just be having symptoms that you don't even realize you have, that things are really happening under the surface. Or, maybe your metabolism is just incredibly high or whatever it might be. But just because that was me. I was at 20 something that was like, look at me, I can eat McDonald's and it doesn't affect me and all this stuff. And then one day everything shifted and it started affecting me in a way that I was like, holy moly, what's going on here? So it's hard. And if you're at an age where maybe you are a bit younger, for many of us, things change as we go through different ages and stages of life. So just because the Oreos and the Twinkies and the Cheetos, like Hanna said, just because they're not necessarily, you don't think that they're necessarily affecting you now, it could very easily affect you long-term or in the future in a way where you're just going to wake up one day and you're going to have that Twinkie and all of a sudden you're going to look down and you will see the Twinkie sticking out in your stomach. You know what I mean? Like, it just happens. So, and that's okay. And that's where you go, okay, this is time to make some little shifts and take care of ourselves. So.
Yep.
Awesome.
Totally.
Okay. So Hanna, how can our ringers connect with you and learn more about the services you offer and what you do?
Yeah, so my website is brideandbliss.com. And then these days I'm spending most of my time on Instagram stories, having fun, showing my day, the usual thing. And my Instagram is at bride.and.bliss.
Got it. Bride.and.bliss. Got it. I'm going to be following that today. So.
Thank you. So those would be the two main places I'm hanging out. Yeah.
Awesome. And you are based in, I think you said, are you in New York?
I'm based in New York. I actually work virtually, so I work with people everywhere. But yeah, I'm based in New York.
Awesome. That's cool. So I wanted to make sure that you work with everybody from all over the place. So that's awesome.
Totally.
Oh, okay. Hanna, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. It was amazing. So.
Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I love talking about this. So
I know. Well, I would hope so. It's what if you were like, I have to talk about nutrition. That would be kind of crazy. Right? So I feel about weddings. Talk about it all day long.
Yep. It's awesome.
Awesome. Cool.